Okay. Look, I think last practice in Shells, we'll be able to put the pads on. We got a day off tomorrow. We'll put the pads on Monday, and we'll start practicing real football. So excited about seeing that. I think we had a good first 4 days to get started. And I think we're making some progress. Obviously, we've got a long way to go, but excited about putting pads on Monday.
Anything stand out to you after the first 4 practices?
Yeah, I just think the competition between both sides has been good. Got a lot of effort on both sides. We've taken the ball away a few times defensively. We've had a few explosive plays offensively. So I think there's a little bit of back and forth between the two units, and I think that's what you're looking for in a good football team is, both units having their their plays.
Dennis, you talked about guys flashing. Would you say Mason Tipton has done that so far?
Yeah, I think so. This is one of these, rookie free agents out of Yale that, I really didn't know a lot about. One of the guy we spent a lot of time talking about in the draft process. And look, I think anytime you see guys like that, I think that's a credit to our scouting department and their ability to identify players, and there's a management to the draft, and for us to be able to identify that player as a guy that has skill set that we like, that might have a chance, and then of course we got to be able to get him to sign as a free agent. But yeah, he's certainly somebody that's caught my eye in the first 4 days, and really go back into the spring.
Do you know what the scouting staff liked about him? Like, what did they tell you about him?
I think the intelligence and the speed. I think that was the main thing that we looked at was, this kid can run, and he's smart, not just yell smart, he's football smart, and I think there's a difference.
How did Spencer look out there today?
Yeah, I thought overall he looked pretty good. This was a hell of a throw on the corner route over here on this side versus kind of a two-man looking coverage. So, yeah, I think all of these guys, every quarterback, I think, has had their moments where they've done the things that we think they're capable of doing, right? And so now the key is how can we get that to be more and more consistent every single day, every single play, every single practice, every single rep. And I think that's what we're working towards. But I think you can see the flashes of, when he does it right, it's pretty good.
Dennis, can you get a sense of where the run game is right now before you guys go to pads?
Yeah, look, it's really hard to tell right now. Run game, run defense. It's hard to tell right now. We'll have a better feel for it when we're able to put the pads on and really thud up the ball carrier and things of that nature, and you will see a little bit more of, you get out into these environments sometimes and you're watching the play, and you don't, when we're not really hitting or thudding everything up, it's hard to tell whether a guy could or couldn't make a play, right? And so I think we'll have a better idea when we put the pads on. But I do think there's some understanding of what we're trying to do. I think there's some cohesiveness, up front with how we're blocking things. I think our guys are working in concert pretty good together. So that's been encouraging.
And it might be a little too early on this one too, but in the first 2 days, what have you seen from Nick Saldiveri?
Probably the same thing that I was talking about with a lot of these guys. In particular the young guys. I've seen some really good things from him, some athletic movement skills from him that I think have been good, and then I've seen a lot of things that he's got to work to improve on. And so, but again, look, he's making progress. Now the key is we got to make some pretty fast progress, and so that's what I'm looking for out of him is accelerate the process a little bit.
We didn't see Brian Brzee out there today.
He's dealing with a foot injury.
You guys
Where's
are.
Lattimore at? Like, is he expected to miss a lot of time?
I'm not going to get into time frames with him or anybody really in terms of time frames of when guys will, be back. He's dealing with a hip flexor injury.
What have you guys liked about Will Harris? It seems like he's getting a good look out.
Yeah, look, size, athleticism, speed. He's a rangy safety, and he comes to work every day. He's a grinder, so all those things are good. I think he's another one that the more he gets accustomed to what we're doing defensively and the way we're asking our guys to operate back there, I think he'll get even more and more comfortable at the position. And I think he's a guy that potentially there could be multiple roles for. So, but that I think is going to really be determined over the course of the next month or 6 weeks, whatever the case may be.
With there being so much, newness to the offensive line, how much does Eric McCoy's job increase his awareness around him?
Well, obviously that's a huge factor. Look, the center position in general is the communicator on the offensive line. He's the guy that's, making sure, we understand, where we're working, and being able to get it adjusted when the picture changes. And so the communication starts with him. And so I think he's got, a big part of that. And in particular, because we do have so many new pieces, in particular young pieces on the offensive line, I think that and Caesar's role, I think, has to increase.
When you were interviewing offensive coordinator candidates, how much did you bring up Taysom's role, or were you interested to see if those candidates had a vision for Taysom, and then in relation to Clint, did something celebrate about?
I don't think it was really that. I think it was mostly about not him in particular, but just okay, what's the scheme? What are the things that you believe in? And then within that, how do you adjust your scheme to fit what some of your guys can do? And certainly Taysom's name came up in conversation, but it wasn't like that was a huge, talking point.
And I know Taysom hasn't been a traditional quarterback in a while now here, but I don't think we've seen him throw a pass in a minute. Just how is he kind of handling that?
Awesome. Yeah, he's been awesome. He's handled everything that we've thrown at him, and we've thrown a lot at him. He's playing a lot of different positions, a lot of different areas, motions, shifts, alignments, positions. But he's handled it like a true pro. And look, there's a lot of guys that have an athletic skill set, but you can't throw that much on them because they can't handle it mentally. This is a guy that can handle a ton mentally, and it's been fun for me to see a fresh vision for how we can utilize this player. It's not just as the Wildcat quarterback. There's a lot of other things that this guy can do, both in the running game and the passing game.
Do you see a clear vision for him, or is it still sort of a work in progress?
Yeah, well, the clear vision is he's going to do a lot of stuff, right? I mean, he's going to do a lot of stuff. He's going to run routes, both from inline, out wide, out of the backfield. He's going to block. He's going to run the ball from the backfield. So yeah, I mean, I see him as a guy that's going to do a ton of different stuff. He's going to line up at the quarterback position at some point in time, and so I think he's an awesome weapon to have, and I think he's extremely selfless in terms of a person, in terms of a player, and just wants to do whatever he can to help the team win, and I know I appreciate that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Kool-Aid the last 2 days on the outside.
Say it again?
We've seen a lot of Kool-Aid the last 2 days on the outside. How valuable are these reps for him right now? What are you looking for him to show?
Well, extremely valuable. I mean, he's a rookie that missed all the spring, so he's 1,000 reps behind. So every rep that he can get is a learning experience for him. Good news for him is that he's smart. He comes from a system that did a lot in college. Fundamentally and technique, he's sound. And yet there's differences in terms of how we do things compared to what he did in college, and so he's got to get, up to speed on those things. So, but he'll be a quick study, and look, he's just got to get out here and get the reps.
What are all the positions Taysom has played?
Well, he's played tight end, he's played running back, he's played fullback, he's played wide receiver. He hasn't played any defense yet. He's played personal protector. He's been a kickoff returner. I'm probably missing something, but I mean, just about every potential skill position that you can think of, he's done it. Punt rush.
And there's different alignments for each of them.
You're out there watching, aren't you?
What's that?
Because he's been a quarterback, does that allow you to kind of just put off him throwing the ball if need be? You know he can do it. So
Yeah. Look, I mean, he can handle a lot, right? But at some point, why don't we get him good at the things that maybe he hadn't done quite as much? And let's get him good at those things, and then it's kind of like riding a bicycle a little bit. We'll be able to get him back on the bike a little bit and line him up at the quarterback position some.
And is him throwing the ball, let's say you wanted to install plays that have him be the throwing option, is that something that comes up more in the regular season when you're specifically game planning?
Yeah, well, look, I think the obvious thing is how are teams playing him when he's at the quarterback position? And if we're getting advantageous looks to be able to run the football, then it makes sense to run the football. If we're getting advantageous looks to throw the football, then it makes sense to throw the football. I don't know what those looks are going to be yet until we kind of get into the season and see how teams, want to try to play him. Now, look, we got a pretty good idea how he's been played in the past, and based on the teams that we play, we'll probably go into each game plan with a little bit of an idea of what we want to do there.
When you look at joint practices, I know you have a 2-day, right? Still with the. Have you heard talk or coaches talk about a preference more now towards the 1 day? And do you have any idea why that is? Do they talk about
well, I think this. I think you get an opportunity to work against a lot of different looks instead of the same look, all the time. The rules of the game are you can only have 2 joint practices with one team. You can have up to 4 total joint practices. And so I think, we're not doing that. So it's probably a better question for other coaches. But, they get an opportunity to work against, 3 different teams, potentially, and 3 different offensive schemes, defensive schemes, special team schemes. Some of this may have to do with the new kickoff rule, and they want to get a look at what other teams are doing.
It doesn't have anything to do with maybe they're feeling like 2 days increases the chances of a fight or something. Have you ever heard anyone talk about that? Or?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I haven't done the study, but I'd say my gut reaction is that you probably have a little bit more of that going on day 2 than you do during day 1. You go to a joint practice, you have the first day's practice. One team or the other is going to feel like they got the better of the other team. Those coaches are going to go yell at their players. Their players are going to be pissed off, and then that's how that stuff happens, right? I mean, that's typically, kind of how that happens. I think, look, the big thing, with joint practices, I think, you got to kind of put a lot on the head coaches to try to get that stuff, under control ahead of time. And look, certainly there's no foolproof way, but you're talking about guys competing at a high level. But yeah, I think it's probably an accurate statement.
Couple more? With the Tipton or guys like him, how much curiosity is there or background on when it's apparent that he's a legit prospect? Okay, well then why did he go to this small program You know, was it just because he was a late bloomer, or?
Yeah, I think we're always kind of trying to figure those things out just a little bit. But I do think that's part of the deal. You know, sometimes it's an academic issue. Sometimes it's a size issue. Sometimes it's some of these guys are 130 pounds when they come out of high school, and then all of a sudden they, get into college and they get to be 185, 190 pounds, and they become a different type player. So, but you see guys all the time, coming from some of these smaller programs that end up making it. Now, if you want to talk about percentages, there's a lot more percentage that are making it from, the bigger programs, obviously. But there's football players in a lot of different places, and you just have to, go try to find them. And look, I think our scouting staff has done as good as anybody going and finding those guys.
So Tipton probably wasn't an academic issue unless it was the good kind where he just really wanted to go to Ivy League.
Sometimes you're too smart to play football, but I don't know if he's in that category. All right? Okay, guys, thank you.
Thanks.